Greetings, QCS build fans, and welcome to what is basically the conclusion of the miner build. So there's been some delays in finishing up this video series, and that's mainly because of the fact that one, I went on vacation because I needed it. So, everybody, you can't work 24/7 all the time when you're 40. It just doesn't work. So I had, went on vacation with the wife for her birthday, and then came back, and the iGPU went out on our 6500T processor, so I had to wait for a 6700T to come in. Then at the same time, the air conditioning went out in the office, and so we couldn't run the rig. So because we couldn't run the rig, there was no point in finishing the build on it. That and I was super busy with other projects trying to get finished up and everything else. So yeah, so it's been kind of an ongoing mess trying to get this one done. So, but here we are. It's done, and on with the madness. Okay, so as you can see, we got our motherboard tray out of that HEC case, or at least what I assume is an HEC case, and we got our miner board over here. So we're just going to go ahead and match it up, see how much we have to move around here. And so we've got these two, this one, this guy, and this guy line up. We need one there, and then of course we'll need the bottom of another. That's what the second case is for, so that way we got standoff points for the bottom of the case, so, or a bottom motherboard tray, so we had the bottom of the board supported. So, but yeah, other than that, we're looking pretty good. Alright, moving on. Alright, so on second thought here, we're going to take this old case here, which is an old Asus A8 machine, because it uses standoffs. The Inspiron motherboard tray doesn't use standoffs. It has those prefabbed humps in it for the motherboard standoffs, so it's not going to work the same way we wanted it to. So, but this machine has a bad motherboard, so we're going to go ahead and pull the board out of it and tear the motherboard tray out of this one, and then cut it down for what we need and get going on this thing. So, let the debauchery begin. Okay, so I got the motherboard tray out of the Asus. So I think I'm actually going to end up using this one because, one, I'm going to end up mounting my one power supply up here to run the motherboard and the processor and everything. So I can still retain most of the power supply mounting mechanism. Especially when I cut the plate out, I can still remount it up here. Also, too, this one's pretty much a full coverage plate versus the other one's just kind of like a big bracket. And so I'm going to use this one for the main part of the board, and then I'll use the other one to extend further down here to be able to support the bottom of the motherboard. So, only thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take and I'm going to cut this tray off down here like so. And so what it'll do is, this is the reinforcement for the drive trays, and obviously we're not going to use drive trays in this, so we're going to take this all out. So, alright, moving on. Alright, so as you can see, we got our pieces cut out here. You can see that everything's going to line up pretty well, and we shouldn't have any issues. So now we can go ahead and we can, we might probably have to modify this guy just a little bit, but now we'll be able to go ahead and we can just screw this to our rack, and then we can start wiring it up. Awesome. Okay, so as you can see, we're getting a lot closer. We've got our motherboard installed, we got our motherboard trays put in, we've got our power supply, one of our power supplies installed, and I stole the bracket out of the one of those cases. So, and then you can see we got our riser cards put in, our power supplies are all hooked up, and then you can see we've got our RX series cards are all nice and installed. Now you can see I've taken and I've spaced these cards out quite a bit. The reason for that is to give proper airflow between the cards. Inside of a case, if you look at, take you over here, if you look at these Taichis, they're very close together, and so that's why we have to have the fan to push air between the cards. But otherwise what happens is the top card gets extremely hot because it's sucking all the heat off the back plate. So that's why in this rig I have designed it so I can space the cards out further. So instead of about an inch difference or an inch of spacing, we've got about 2 inches of spacing, pretty close. Because I calculated for an overall card width of 3 inches. So it's got 3 inches of spacing per card roughly, and so yeah, that should work quite a bit better. You can also see that we've got our risers installed on our cards, and so yep. And then we've got our power cords installed, so for our risers. The only thing we don't have is, unfortunately, these PCI Express lines coming off our power supply are not long enough. So I'm gonna have to get extensions to be able excuse me, to be able to run them. So anyways, moving on. Okay, so you can see here we've got at this point everything, this current setup has been running for about a week with very few issues. The one thing I did change is, you can see, whoops, you can see right there as I try to drop the phone, I changed the flash drive out and installed our hashing OS on an SSD drive, and that seems to be working a whole heck of a lot better that way. So the other issue we were having too is, you can see right here, I've gone through and I've spaced out the riser cards because what was happening is, I will go ahead and show this to you, is we were taking and we had them all butted up next to each other, but the problem is as you can see, those get really close to the back of the USB port, and I believe we were getting signaling problems. So when we spaced everything out like this, we didn't have any issues at all. So I believe when we add, we're gonna go ahead and at this point I'm adding 2 more cards in here, so we'll fill up the other 2 white slots here. And then I believe when we go through and start adding the rest of I got two more cards on top of that I'm going to put in, so we'll have to use a couple of the black slots. And so when we do that, I believe I'm going to wrap these in electrical tape and see if that gives us enough insulation that it fixes our signaling problem. So okay, moving on. Okay, so as you can see, I'm getting everything taped up and moved around. I've got the other 4 cards all ready installed, and they're moved out of the other machine over there. So yes, everything's a mess. This is what happens when you go on vacation. So show you what I'm doing here is on these risers, you can see that we've got a really, if I can get the camera to focus here. Oh, there we go. Okay, so you can see the grounding prongs for the these risers are really long, and so because of that, what we got to do is I'm taking a pair of blunt nose wire cutters, and I'm trimming those down. So I'll show you that here in a second. Okay, so that's the trimmed version. So we trim that down, and then what happens is that even though it's only like a 1/16 of an inch, it keeps the unit, instead of sitting square like this, keeps it from tilting to one side and then losing contact in the PCI slot. So, alright, well, we'll get this one wrapped up and then we'll kick her back on. Here we go, boys and girls. Here it is. She's all done. So, all our fans are running. We've got 4 5700 XT Taichi AsRock cards. We got our one MSI Armor OC card, 570. We got another AsRock 570 there, and then we got our AsRock 580, and then a 580 OC Model D, and then we have our Power Color 590 right there. So they're all running. We got our risers on all of them. So you can see we got, so what we're doing here is we're running 5 Arctic P14 fans running at full speed. As you can see in a couple of spots, we've actually got these 12 volt hardwired directly to the power supply, so they're just running full tilt. We've got 2 that are actually connected to the motherboard. We've got 3 Apevia 1000 watt power supplies, and they are running basically 3 cards apiece. So the one here on this end is running these 3 5700 XTs. This power supply is running this 5700 XT and the 2 570s. And then this power supply is running our main board processor and all of that, plus it's running our 590 and our 2 580s. So that keeps, now these power supplies are rated, they're 1000 watt power supplies, but they are rated for 880 watts ish for 12 volts. Stable without thermaling or running too hot or anything like that. They're good for about 750 watts. So on the 12 volt rail. So if you keep it under 800 easy, they run perfectly fine. So, but yeah. But we've been kind of delayed on this video on finishing this up because our air conditioning went out in the office. So we've been working to try to get that fixed. Here you can see we got our Nocta cooler, we got our 8 gig stick of DDR4 RAM, and you can see we got all of our riser cards running USB 3s on here. And you can see where we had to tape them up. I believe we mentioned that before, because they were shorting out. So yeah, that was all kinds of fun. So, but yeah, she's running good. We'll give you a screenshot of the control and everything, and so you can see exactly on the website how the management part of it looks. So this is a screenshot for the rig manager on the web interface. You can see that we've actually only got 8 cards instead of the 9, and that was because of the fact that the third power supply shut down. Pretty sure that was from a thermal limit, just running too hot. So trying to run 3 of the 5700 XT Taichis, which each one of those cards pulls about, depending on the workload, anywhere from about 220 to about 260 watts when it's mining. So basically you're pulling about 750, almost 800 watts off of a single power supply, and on these power supplies, they don't like that. They tend to get warm and then want to shut down. So yeah, so that's kind of disappointing, but that's okay. So what we ended up doing is actually taking one of the MSI card, is actually, I pulled that one out, and then rearranged which cards were hooked up to which power supply 2 and power supply 3. They kind of load balance the load a little bit better. So I ended up pulling that 570 because that 570 is actually going to go to a client, because he's having issues with his Armor 570 card. So I know that one works really, really well, so I'm going to swap him out with that one and see if that solves his problem. So anyways, but you can see that so the 5700 XTs basically run about 50 mega hash. You can see in the list, you'll see the 580, the 570, a couple of those are reading at 50 mega hash. That's actually incorrect. There's an issue inside the mining OS where it actually assigns the hash rate incorrectly to the wrong model of card, which doesn't really make any difference. So to the actual productivity rate of the rig. So yeah, it works perfectly fine. But you can see we're basically, with 8 cards, we're just shy of 300 mega hash. Although combined with the other 3 cards that I have running in 3 other computers, that gives us a hash rate of about 460 mega hash. So we're basically almost half a gig, which is pretty good. So, but yeah, so the running it with the 8 cards, it's actually running really good. So later on, we'll probably do a follow-up video down the road, especially when the new Ethereum update hits in July. We'll probably do an update, and then we'll kind of give you an idea of how our profitability got hit or didn't get hit, or what happens there. But yeah, she's running good. So thanks for watching. We're gonna run this one for a while, and we're gonna probably follow up in about a month, and we'll catch you on the next one. Bye for now. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe.